Well, once again, we've had a ton of water in our system now for all this past week. Big Moon was in play, and it showed itself quite a bit as the week progressed. As we got toward the weekend, the fishing got more and more difficult. At least it did for me. We got into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They were all three, as far as beautiful days, they were, but from a catching standpoint, there's not so much. So Big Moon was playing a big part of that. And again, we had big high pressure in place on the weekend and all the extra water we've had in here too. So that's just, again, just helps scatter those fish around for they can go for a lot of places. So we kind of primarily stayed down on this shoreline here, back there in San Antonio Bay, that south shoreline. Worked all these little guts that are back in here. Usually when that water falls out, it typically can be pretty good, but at the same time, when you got all the water that we have in the system right now, it will also hold fish, and you can push back a little further. So we did that. Again, just worked the little mouths. They're all up and down this whole shoreline, all the way up to Panther Point. Man, there's just so much water was in the system this past week. It's really made things a lot more difficult. But you could get back in these little back lakes back here in the lake part of it, and then back here in Swan, back in that area there. We made a little trek. It's a long run, but we went all the way back down here to Cedar Lake. Cedar Lake, we found a few fish that were back in those areas there when you have that much water in the system. And then, of course, you can kind of go up there toward Twin Lake in this area here. That's about as far as we would go. Everything was pushed up on the shoreline. Further back in some of the little back lake areas, those fish were pushed back in there, but then it just wasn't great numbers by any means. Just really light bite. The trout bite was super light. Lots of little ones that are in the system right now. We're catching a ton of those 12 to 14 inchers. Redfish were pretty good. When you would find, a few of them that would be all in that lower slot, 20 to 23s. Bunch of shorts there as well, because of 18s or 19s. But we were, on the tough parts of those days, we were locating those fish, just kind of locating, moving around a little bit. Didn't really stay in any one particular area super, super long time. Like I said, lots of bait in the area, just not a lot of fish activity. And that's, again, I'll attribute that to the big moon that was in place. And now that we're on the back side of that, we're in that transition moon now. We'll be in the new moon here probably another few days, and hopefully the catching will pick up quite a bit between now and then. But as long as we've got as much water as we got, take advantage of that to get back in your back lakes, get back in some cuts maybe that you hadn't been to fish for a while. If you're going to be out on the water this upcoming week, at some point, again, that water will recede, and when it does, it'll be pretty drastic. But until that happens, we'll take as much advantage we can of that higher tides that we've got right now that are really abnormal. Main baits that we were focusing using this week around that big moon, we stayed with the small profile, the burner shad in the down south, the original size in the down south, the knock and tail, the pav lures, the little softy, and he has a newer size bait now that's pretty small. It's about a 3-inch bait, little rat tail. It did pretty good this past week. Now, as far as colors go, bone and white ice did pretty good for the most part. Some of the twisted tea did okay. Purple rain was pretty good. A lot of the water was really clean because we had really low winds, except for maybe one afternoon. We had a decent wind that was blowing around 12 or 15. So it dirtied some of the water up depending on where you were fishing. But for the most part, all the water was not gin clear, but just had a little bit of stain to it. But we tried to stay more with our translucents as much as we could, or what made sense anyway, and then kind of transition to some areas over some little bit darker grass that would throw some darker baits that were mixed in there with that. But that was pretty much our color selection and our profile size. So every once in a while we'd throw a little bit bigger bait on there, maybe like in the 5-inch in the down south, the supermodel version, and didn't have hardly any success with that whatsoever. So it just kind of let us know, just continue to throw the 4-inch or smaller. Little John's was another one that did pretty good for us. So that was our game plan for the week. Every day that we were on the water, that's what we stuck with. That's what we kind of brought to the dance, if you will. But again, it was just a really tough catching week for us. So really no pattern to anything. You know, the bite would pick up a little bit around that major. And then once, you know, that major was about half gone, that bite just would die off, and then it was just back to grinding. So this was a tough week of grinding and finding and catching fish for us. So things will get better. That's just part of it. That comes with the game itself. So when you work these areas like that, just be real diligent with it. Give it a lot of patience, perseverance through this time frame until our water kind of levels out and gets back to somewhat normal. Make sure you're paying attention to those majors and minors. And again, the new moon's coming, so hopefully that will pick things up for us. So anyhow, if you get to be out on the water this week, just kind of take all that stuff in consideration, and hope you have good luck. Long Reef Bend area, again, lots of water in the system, man. So you really can fish a long way if you want to. We kind of found pretty much primarily focused on the little back lake mouths that are all up and down here on Long Reef Bend area, the back lakes, those areas there up here on Jaybird again. All this area back in here, just so much water that's in the system. Then back in Sherman's, it's been kind of repetitive, but with the amount of water that's in here, all these areas back up here, those fish will push back. They'll get back into areas where they haven't typically been able to, but for the past week, this water's been like that. So we even went further back into here, worked all these areas back this way, weighted all these areas up in here, the back lakes here in Sherman's, the outer shoreline, the inner shoreline, just to try to locate fish. Like I say, tons and tons and tons of bait in the system, just not a lot of productivity happened this past week for us. The early part of the week was okay, but again, as the week progressed, it just got more and more tough. So, and then, slide back down in here to Spalding, work all these back lakes, get back into these areas in here. This little middle lake here, there's a pretty good one here. That's one of my favorites to fish because you could push that thing all the way up into Mesquite Bay if you wanted to. And then, of course, the lake that's on this side over here. We found fish in all of them, again, but just not big numbers. Just not a lot of action as far as that went go. The bites were super light, just not super active fish at all. Again, it's part of the big moon, partly the water, just conditions in general, high pressure as the week progressed. So that turns a lot of fishing off. So it makes it really difficult to try to get that pattern, to try to figure out what the fish want. Like I said, we stayed with primarily all small profile baits. Through some of the Pavlure, the little softy, the one that's real similar to what a soft dine is. Again, the burner shads were the mainstay for us for the most part. Some of the knock and tail were in there, and of course the little johns. And that was the profile that we stuck with, and that was what we caught fish on. Limited, but we did catch them on that. So our bite frames were not very long at all. And again, I anticipate that to change as we get closer to the new moon phase. We're in the wild card days right now, so have a little bit of difference in your box. Bigger baits, smaller baits, profiles, all that mixed in there. So until we get some type of real pattern that's going to hang in there with us, you just got to have a pretty decent selection of baits for yourself so you can have a pretty decent catching day. Now, we still don't have a foreseeable front anywhere close. Didn't look like coming. So once we get one of those in here that's pretty significant, then things will change for the better as far as what these fish are really wanting to do as far as eating goes. But for now, this is kind of the game plan on probably what you want to incorporate into your fishing day. Make sure that you're fishing around that major or a minor, whatever time of day that's going to be coming up. Make sure that you're paying attention to that. Make sure you just watch your tides and what they're going to do. So as far as if the water's still going to hold for us, which it's been holding pretty good for about 10 or 12 days. So we haven't really worried about that. So anyhow, just take that into consideration as you schedule your fishing day, whatever that may be this upcoming week. Down here off Rattlesnake, Pete's Bend, all this area here around these little islands and stuff. Once again, with the amount of water, these islands did pretty good as far as lighting up goes. A lot of structure there. If you came out here on the point, much more difficult to fish because that water was really high up in here. So it made that hard to fish that way up in that. So we kind of stayed more around the little islands. Then get back in here behind Redfish Lodge up here pretty close to the shoreline, all the way back up into here, into Pete's Bend. Then we kind of worked back around, came off of this point here as you go into Italian Bend, and then get way back here and all the little lake mouths. And there's not a tremendous amount of them that dump out into it. There's maybe 2 or 3 that do that, but like I say, all the fish that we were catching were all pushed up against the shoreline, against the grass. There's so much flooded grass areas, so it's kind of hard to really dictate what was actual shoreline and what was the shoreline based on what the flooding that was going on. Come back around up here off of the point, get this big sand flat that's here, and there's a lot of scattered grass that's on it. So again, we were pushed out there on that, and just got out there about belly deep water in some spots, maybe a little bit more than that, and worked these areas a lot. And just kind of spent our time there. We had low winds most of the week, so it made it pretty easy to fish from that standpoint. Good runs made that real easy as well. But again, just the fishing activity was really low this past week, so just not a lot of activity. Stayed with the smaller profile baits and the colors I'd mentioned earlier, and that was pretty much the white ice, bone diamond, twisted tea, big papa, watermelon red, the truth, some assorted flavors in the Pav lures. We were throwing those as well. But the smaller profile of those, a lot of flake, a lot of translucent baits. Because again, our water was really pretty clean for the most part and all that there. And then just kind of made a trek across over here to this west shoreline, down in Port Bay area, and worked this edge right down this shoreline right here, all the way back around to this point, and then this big flat that's out here that goes all the way up to that 188 little kayak ramp area. So all this came in play. Again, there was plenty of bait in the system, not a lot of fish activity. There was fish that were there. We knew they were holding there. We'd pull them out, but again, lots of 12 to 14s, maybe sprinkled in a 16 here or there. Redfish, a lot of shorts, a lot of 18s to 19 and a half. And then you'd pull out a 21 or 22 inch redfish as well. So that was our week. That was just part of possibly transitioning. Again, the big moon, big pressure, a lot of water, just all that stuff had to go into your factoring and how to approach and get after these fish. So, but again, pattern-wise, there was nothing that was really just stick to, this is what we're going to do every time, and this is how we're going to find and catch our fish. We tried a lot of different things. So always be open-minded when you have tough days like that. In the patience part really comes into it. So sometimes you just have to grind and get after it. And by the end of the day, or by the end of your fishing day anyway, that you have found your fish, at least what you want. So anyhow, that was what we did. That's what transpired this past week. Look for again the new moon that's coming. Things will get better. If I say every day that you get a chance to be out on the water, you figure something else out. And I always think that the tough days are great learning days as well, because you see some stuff when you just go out and catch them and be done in 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes the learning aspect of it really doesn't kick in for you because you didn't really pay attention to what you were doing. It was just they were biting on that particular day, or you caught them on that particular day. But the tough days, you figure stuff out and you learn more stuff, and you can put that into your arsenal as far as the next time that those opportunities do come around for you. So always embrace the tough days, whether you like them or not, but it will help you become a better fisherman out on the water.